no nurse made it through the cold Billionaire Sheikh's holiday rotation. Until the American nurse who exposed his secret. The sound of a child crying in the dark is one of the loneliest sounds in the world. Not screaming, not wailing, just whimpering. The kind of crying that has learned not to be too loud because no one ever comes. The kind of crying that expects to be alone. And then, footsteps. A woman's footsteps, soft against marble floors that stretched longer than some city blocks. A door pushed open, hinges silent from expensive maintenance. Warm candlelight spilling into the hallway like a secret escaping. And standing there, surrounded by hospital equipment that had no business being in a child's bedroom, was a 5-year-old girl with dark curly hair and eyes red from tears she had tried to hide. She looked up at the stranger in her doorway. And in a voice far too steady for someone so small, she asked the question that would haunt Maya Sinclair for the rest of her life. Are you going to leave like the others? 18 nurses in 2 years. That's how many had tried and failed. Every single one had fled from the coldest billionaire in Dubai, a man who spoke to no one, touched no one, and kept his greatest secret locked in a hidden room at the heart of his compound. Some lasted weeks. Some lasted days. One, according to the whispered rumors, lasted exactly 4 hours before requesting emergency extraction like she was fleeing a war zone. But the 19th nurse? She wasn't running. She was just getting started. Her name was Maya Sinclair. And at that moment, standing in an airport halfway across the world at 3 in the morning with a worn duffel bag and a look in her eyes that said she had absolutely nothing left to lose, she had no idea what she was walking into. Maya didn't know it yet, but she was about to do something no one else had dared. She was about to expose the secret Sheikh Khalid al-Rashid had spent 5 years protecting with every resource, every wall, every frozen silence he could muster. And in doing so, she would either save a little girl's life or destroy them both. But before we find out how this ends, I want to know something. Where in the world are you watching from today? Drop your city in the comments. And if you believe that some secrets are meant to be found, that some walls are meant to come down, hit that like button right now. Before we go any further, if you're someone who believes that the most powerful people sometimes carry the heaviest secrets, tap like. It helps this story reach others who need to hear it. And if you've ever felt invisible, if you've ever been the one who stayed when everyone else walked away, this story is for you. Subscribe if you're new, turn on notifications, and share this with someone who understands what it means to fight for someone who can't fight for themselves. Now, let's go back to the beginning. Let's meet Maya Sinclair on the worst night of her life. The Dubai International Airport at 3 in the morning felt like stepping into the future while your body was still stuck somewhere in the past. Maya Sinclair walked through the gleaming terminal with her worn duffel bag slung over one shoulder, fighting the kind of exhaustion that settles into your bones after 17 hours of recycled airplane air and turbulence that felt personal. The airport around her sparkled like something out of a science fiction movie. Soaring ceilings, polished floors that reflected the lights like water, shops selling watches that cost more than her annual salary. And there she was. Wrinkled scrubs stuffed in her bag. Instant coffee breath. A ponytail that had given up on itself somewhere over the Atlantic. She muttered to herself as she walked, a habit she'd developed from too many years of living alone and talking to no one but patients who couldn't answer back. Private household rotation. Generous compensation. Discretion required. She snorted quietly. Translation: something's very wrong, and they're paying me not to ask questions. The email from the medical staffing agency had been deliberately vague. 3 weeks. Holiday coverage. High-profile client. Luxury accommodations. More money than she'd made in the past 6 months combined. Maya had learned a long time ago that when something sounds too good to be true, it's usually because someone's hiding the catch in the fine print. But she'd also learned that when your bank account hits double digits and your landlord starts leaving increasingly aggressive notes, you don't get to be picky. So here she was. Dubai. 3 in the morning. Wondering if she was about to become very rich or very dead. Possibly both. Miss Sinclair. The voice came from her left. She turned to find a man standing near the arrivals gate, holding a sign with her name written in elegant calligraphy. He was dressed in an impeccable gray suit that probably cost more than her car, with a posture so formal he could have been guarding royalty. Which, she would later learn, wasn't far from the truth. "That's me," Maya said, adjusting her bag. You must be my ride to wherever I'm supposed to be dying of boredom for the next 3 weeks. The man's expression flickered, just for a moment, something between shock and, was that amusement? I'm Rashid, he said, his accent cultured, his tone carefully neutral, head of household staff. And I assure you, Miss Sinclair, boredom will not be your problem. Something in his voice made her stomach tighten. Not fear exactly. More like the feeling you get right before you realize you've made a terrible mistake. But Maya was too tired to listen to her instincts. She'd spent the past 3 years ignoring them anyway. What was one more bad decision in a lifetime full of them? Lead the way, she said. The car that picked them up was the kind of vehicle Maya had only ever seen in movies. Sleek, black, so quiet it felt like riding in a whisper. The leather seats were softer than her bed back home, and the air conditioning was set to the exact temperature that made you forget the desert existed just outside the tinted windows. Rashid sat in the front, speaking quietly to the driver in Arabic. Maya stared out the window, watching Dubai scroll past like a fever dream. Towers that twisted toward the sky, highways wider than some towns, gardens that had no business existing in the middle of the desert. And then, after what felt like an eternity, they arrived. The Al Rashid compound wasn't a house. It was a small city. Maya pressed her face against the window as they drove through gates that looked like they belonged on a palace. Inside, marble fountains caught the moonlight, their water dancing in patterns too perfect to be natural. Gardens stretched in every direction, impossibly green, impossibly lush, flowers blooming in defiance of everything she knew about desert climates. And the residence itself? Maya's entire apartment building could have fit inside the main entrance. Twice. Either I'm about to become very rich, she muttered to herself, or very dead. Possibly both. Rashid appeared at her door, opening it with practiced efficiency. Your quarters are in the east wing, he said as she stepped out, still staring at the compound like it might disappear if she blinked. The Sheikh prefers minimal interaction with household staff. You will receive instructions each morning regarding your duties. And what exactly will those duties be? Rashid hesitated, just for a moment, just long enough for Maya to notice. General household medical support. Maya raised an eyebrow. That's incredibly specific. Her sarcasm landed harder than she intended. But instead of offense, she could have sworn she saw the corner of Rashid's mouth twitch. Almost like a smile trying to escape. Almost. The Sheikh values privacy above all else, Miss Sinclair. You'll understand soon enough. He led her through corridors that seemed to go on forever. Marble floors, priceless artwork, ceilings so high she could barely see them. Every door they passed was closed, and Maya had the distinct impression that behind each one was a secret she wasn't supposed to know. Finally, they reached her quarters. The room was bigger than her entire apartment back in Chicago. A king-sized bed dominated one wall, dressed in sheets that probably had a thread count higher than her credit score. A private bathroom gleamed through an open doorway, and the view from the window. Desert. Endless desert, rolling away into darkness, interrupted only by the distant sparkle of Dubai's skyline. If you need anything, Rashid said, there is a phone by the bed. Dial 0 for assistance. And if I need to know what I'm actually doing here. Rashid paused at the door. For just a moment, something passed through his eyes. Something that might have been pity. Or warning. Get some rest, Miss Sinclair. You'll need it. And then he was gone, leaving Maya alone with a room that cost more than her education and the growing certainty that she had made a terrible, terrible mistake. She lay on the bed, staring at the ceiling, mind racing despite her exhaustion. What did I sign up for? The answer came 3 hours later. Maya would find out exactly what she'd signed up for in just a few hours, and what she discovered would change everything. Not just for her, but for a little girl who had been waiting 5 years for someone brave enough to find her. The sound woke her at 2 in the morning. It was faint at first, so faint Maya thought she might have dreamed it. But then it came again, a whimper, a cry that had learned to be quiet. Her nursing instincts kicked in before her common sense could stop them. She was out of bed and grabbing her phone before she fully registered what she was doing. The flashlight cut through the darkness as she opened her door and stepped into the marble hallway. The compound at night was different. Shadows stretched longer here, pooling in corners that the daylight never seemed to reach. The silence was heavier, pressing against her ears like a physical weight. Her footsteps echoed too loudly, and she found herself walking softer, lighter, like she was trespassing in a place she was never meant to see. The sound led her deeper into the compound. Past doors she'd been told not to open. Through corridors she hadn't seen on any tour. She knew she was violating the rules. She knew she should turn back. She didn't care, because that sound, that crying, it was coming from a child. And Maya Sinclair had never been able to walk away from a child in pain. Finally, she found it. A door slightly ajar. Warm light spilling through the crack like a secret escaping. And drifting through the gap, the unmistakable melody of a music box. Maya pushed the door open and froze. The room was painted in soft pastels. Lavender walls, cream-colored curtains, stuffed animals arranged on shelves like a carefully curated collection. Picture books were stacked on a small table. Drawings were pinned to a board, childish but beautiful, full of stars and flowers, and a recurring figure that might have been a princess. But that wasn't what made Maya's heart stop. It was the medical equipment. 4 stands lined one wall. An oxygen monitor blinked quietly beside the bed. A small ventilator sat on standby, ready to be used at a moment's notice. Medication was organized in a cabinet with labels Maya recognized from years of nursing. This wasn't a child's bedroom. This was a hospital room disguised as a fairy tale. And in the center of it all, in a hospital bed designed to look like a princess carriage, sat a little girl. She couldn't have been more than 5 years old. Dark curly hair framed a delicate face, and large brown eyes, red from crying, stared directly at Maya. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then the little girl asked the question that would change everything. "Who are you?" Before Maya could answer, a voice behind her turned her blood to ice. "What are you doing in this room?" Maya spun around, and suddenly, every rumor she'd heard about the Sheikh made sense. Khalid al-Rashid stood in the doorway like a statue carved from shadow. He was tall, easily over 6 feet, with broad shoulders and a face that might have been handsome if it wasn't set in stone. Dark hair, perfectly groomed. Dark suit, perfectly tailored. Dark eyes that looked at Maya like she was something to be removed. But beneath the anger, beneath the ice, Maya saw something else. Fear. Absolute, paralyzing fear. "I heard crying," Maya said, forcing her voice to stay steady despite the way her heart was trying to escape her chest. "I'm a nurse," I responded. "You responded to a restricted area of my home." Khalid's accent was subtle but unmistakable. "Old money. Old power. Old walls built to keep everyone out." Actually, I wasn't given any instructions about restricted areas. Just vague statements about minimal interaction. Maya's eyes moved past him, back to the little girl in the bed. The medical equipment. The oxygen monitor. The ventilator on standby. Her nurse's mind was already cataloging. Chronic respiratory condition, long-term care setup, frequent monitoring required. Maybe if someone had told me there was a child who needed medical attention. "She doesn't need your attention." The words were sharp, final, designed to end the conversation. But then something happened that Maya would think about for years afterward. Khalid moved past her toward the bed, and his entire demeanor transformed. The ice melted. The anger faded. His shoulders dropped, his jaw unclenched, and when he sat on the edge of the princess carriage bed, his voice became something Maya had never expected to hear from a man like him. Tender. "Amira, Habibi, what happened?" The little girl, this hidden child in the hidden room, looked up at her father with eyes still wet from tears. "I had the scary dream again, Baba. The one where I can't breathe." And Maya watched as the coldest billionaire in Dubai pulled his daughter into his arms and held her like she was the most precious thing in the world. He stroked her hair and murmured to her in Arabic, words Maya didn't understand but recognized anyway. The language of a parent who would burn down the world to protect their child. Something shifted in Maya's chest. Something she didn't want to examine too closely. After what felt like an eternity, Khalid looked up. His expression had reset to ice, but it was thinner now, cracked in places. "I'll leave," Maya said quietly. "But if there's a child with respiratory issues in this house, I should have been informed. That's not about invading privacy. That's about doing my job." Khalid didn't turn around. "Rashid will escort you to your quarters. We'll discuss your reassignment in the morning." Reassignment meaning fired? Meaning exactly that. Maya should have left. Every professional instinct, every survival instinct, told her to walk away. This wasn't her fight. This wasn't her family. This wasn't her problem. But the little girl, Amira, was looking at her over her father's shoulder. And in those dark eyes, Maya saw something that stopped her in her tracks. Loneliness. Not the temporary kind. Not the kind that goes away when someone walks into the room. This was loneliness that had settled into the bones. Loneliness that had become permanent. Maya knew that look. She'd seen it in the mirror for years. Your daughter deserves better care than secrets and silence, Maya said, her voice quiet but firm. Whatever you're hiding, whatever this is, she deserves someone fighting for her, not tiptoeing around her. She left before Khalid could respond. But she could feel his eyes on her back the entire way down the hall. Maya woke the next morning expecting security to escort her out. She'd already mentally composed her resignation before firing speech. Something along the lines of, "Thanks for the marble floors and the existential crisis, but I'll see myself out." She was packed before the knock came. But when she opened the door, it wasn't security. It was Rashid, and he was carrying a tablet, not termination papers. "The Sheikh has requested you specifically for the morning rotation with Miss Amira." Maya stared at him. "He what?" "I'm as surprised as you are, Miss Sinclair." Rashid's expression was somewhere between bewildered and impressed. Perhaps more so. He handed her the tablet. Maya took it automatically, still trying to process what she was hearing. This contains Amira's complete medical history. Cystic fibrosis, diagnosed at 18 months. She requires daily respiratory therapy, enzyme supplements with every meal, and constant monitoring for infection. Her condition is well managed, but severe. Maya scrolled through the records. Her heart sank with each page. This wasn't just a sick child. This was a child who had spent more of her life in hospitals than out of them. A child whose body was fighting a battle it would never fully win. Why keep her hidden? Maya asked, looking up from the tablet. There's no shame in having a sick child. Rashid's expression closed like a door slamming shut. That's not for me to discuss. Then what is there to discuss? Your instructions. Rashid's voice was carefully neutral, but Maya could hear the undercurrent beneath it. Something like hope. Something like desperation. Care for Amira. Maintain discretion. Ask no questions. Has that approach worked well with the previous 18 nurses? For the first time since she'd arrived, Rashid smiled. It was small, barely there, gone almost before it appeared. But it was real. Report to the Purple Room at 9 o'clock, Miss Sinclair. And perhaps try not to get fired on your second day. After Rashid left, Maya stood in her quarters, trying to make sense of what had just happened. She should have been on a plane back to Chicago. She should have been updating her resume, explaining to another employment agency why she'd lasted less than 24 hours at yet another position. Instead, she was being given a second chance by a man who had looked at her like she was trespassing on sacred ground. By a father who kept his daughter locked away from the world like a secret that could never be told. Why? The question followed her as she made her way to the Purple Room at exactly 9 o'clock. The answer was waiting inside. Amira al-Rashid looked nothing like the crying child from the night before. She was sitting up in her princess carriage bed, breakfast tray pushed aside, attempting to braid the hair of a doll with limited success. When Maya walked in, those dark eyes lit up with something that looked almost like hope, almost like recognition. You came back. 3 words. 3 simple words that hit Maya harder than anything had in years. I did, Maya said, setting down the medical bag Rashid had provided. Maya, I'm going to be helping take care of you for a little while. Amira studied her with an intensity that seemed far too old for a 5-year-old. That's what they all say. Who? The nurses. Amira shrugged, a gesture that should have been casual but carried the weight of years of disappointment. They all say they're going to stay. Then they see Baba and decide it's not worth it. Maya felt something crack in her chest. What do you mean, they see Baba? He scares them. Amira went back to braiding her doll's hair, her voice matter of fact. Or maybe I do. I can't tell anymore. Maya crouched down beside the bed, bringing herself to Amira's eye level. Do you want to know a secret? Amira looked up, curious despite herself. I don't scare easily, and I definitely don't run away from little girls who need help with their doll's hair. For the first time, a real smile crossed Amira's face. It was like watching the sun break through clouds. I want to pause here for a moment, because this little girl, 5 years old, fighting a disease every single day, just told a stranger that she believes she's the reason everyone leaves. If that doesn't break your heart, I don't know what will. If you believe every child deserves to be seen, to be loved, to be told they are not a burden, hit like right now. Share this video with someone who needs to hear that message today. Comment below, what would you say to a child who believed they were the reason people leave? Subscribe and turn on notifications, because this story is just getting started, and what Maya discovers next changes everything. Now, let's find out what really happened to the 18 nurses before her. The first day was a revelation. Amira al-Rashid wasn't just a sick child in a hidden room. She was brilliant, funny, opinionated, and absolutely unafraid to share her thoughts on everything from the quality of her breakfast to the proper way to organize stuffed animals. "That one," she said, pointing to a machine that helped clear her lungs, "is Sir Breeds-a-Lot. He's very important. Sir Breeds-a-Lot. He's a knight. He protects my lungs from the dragons." Amira's expression was completely serious. "And that one is Princess Ari." She pointed to the oxygen tank. "She's his wife. They're very happy together." Maya found herself laughing, something she hadn't done in months. "Those are excellent names. I have names for everything. Baba says I have too much imagination." Amira paused, then added quietly, "But I think he likes it. He just doesn't know how to say so." As the day progressed, Maya began to understand why 18 nurses had failed. It wasn't just Khalid's coldness, though that was certainly a factor. It wasn't just the secrecy, though that was suffocating. It was Amira herself. Not because she was difficult, because she was devastating. Every casual comment revealed years of isolation. Every offhand remark exposed a childhood spent in hiding. This little girl had never been to school, never had friends her own age, never experienced anything outside these walls. And she had accepted it as normal. During respiratory therapy, while Maya helped Amira with breathing exercises, the little girl said something that stopped Maya's heart. "You're still here." "Of course I'm still here. It's only lunchtime." "No." Amira shook her head. "I mean, you're still here. Usually by now, they've already asked Rashid about leaving." "Why would they ask about leaving?" Amira was quiet for a moment. Then, in a voice so small Maya had to lean in to hear it. "One lady said mean things about me when she thought I couldn't hear. She said I was the reason Baba would never have a normal life." Maya felt anger, hot and sharp, surge through her chest. "That lady was wrong," Maya said firmly. "And she was also terrible at whispering." Amira looked up, surprised. And then, unexpectedly, she laughed. It was the most beautiful sound Maya had ever heard. That evening, Maya did something none of the other nurses had ever done. She went looking for answers. She found Khalid in his study, a room lined with books in at least 6 languages and windows that overlooked the desert. He was standing with his back to the door, staring out at the dying light, and he didn't turn around when she entered. "Miss Sinclair, I assume Rashid told you the study is off limits. He mentioned something about restricted areas." I wasn't really listening. Khalid turned around. In the fading light, his face was harder to read than usual. But Maya had spent years reading patients who couldn't or wouldn't speak. She could see the exhaustion beneath the ice, the grief beneath the anger. "You're still here," he said. "Everyone keeps saying that like it's surprising." "It is surprising. Most nurses are requesting transfers by now." "I'm not most nurses." Silence stretched between them. Maya could have left, should have left, but she had never been good at doing what she should. "Why do you keep her hidden?" The question landed like a stone in still water. Khalid's jaw tightened. "That's not your concern. With respect, Sheikh al-Rashid, I just spent the entire day with your daughter. A daughter who believes she's the reason everyone leaves. A daughter who has never set foot outside this compound. A daughter who thinks she's broken because no one has ever told her otherwise." She stepped closer. "So yes, it is my concern. Because whatever you're protecting her from, it's not working. All you're doing is teaching her to be invisible." For a long moment, Khalid said nothing. Maya could see the war happening behind his eyes. The instinct to throw her out battling with something else. Something she couldn't quite identify. Finally, he spoke. And when he did, his voice was different. Quieter. Older. Her mother left when the diagnosis came. Maya felt the words hit her like a physical blow. She looked at our daughter, our perfect, beautiful daughter. And she called her defective. She said she couldn't spend her life tied to a sick child. And then she left, walked out the door, and never came back. Khalid turned back to the window. His reflection stared back at Maya, ghost-like in the glass. My family was no better. They saw Amira's illness as a weakness, a sign that I had somehow failed to produce an acceptable heir. There were suggestions, never direct, always careful, that perhaps she would be better off in a facility. Out of sight. Out of mind. That's barbaric. That's reality, Miss Sinclair. Khalid's voice was bitter. The world is not kind to children who are different. The world does not celebrate those who struggle. It looks for weakness and exploits it. Every nurse who came here eventually proved that. Through their pity, their judgment, their whispered conversations with other staff members. He turned to face her. I built this world to protect my daughter from people who would see her as less than. And I will not apologize for that. Maya held his gaze. I'm not asking you to apologize. I'm asking you to consider that protection and imprisonment might look more alike than you think. What would you have me do? Send her to a school where children will mock her? Introduce her to a society that will label her before they know her name? I would have you let her live. Maya's voice cracked. She hadn't meant to get emotional. She never meant to get emotional. But something about this situation, this hidden child, this broken family, it was hitting too close to home. She's 5 years old, Maya continued. She names her medical equipment because she doesn't have any friends. She thinks she's the reason everyone leaves because no one has ever stayed long enough to tell her otherwise. She has never been to a birthday party, never played with other children, never experienced anything beyond these walls. She stepped closer. You're so focused on protecting her from the world that you've forgotten to let her live in it. The silence that followed was heavy, suffocating. Maya was certain she had gone too far, said too much, crossed every line that existed between employer and employee. But then Khalid did something she never expected. He looked at her, really looked at her, not with anger or ice or the careful blankness he showed the world, with vulnerability. 18 nurses, he said quietly. 18 in 2 years. Each one came with credentials and references and promises. Each one left because they couldn't handle the secrecy, or they judged Amira, or they proved themselves untrustworthy in 100 small ways. He paused. And then you arrive. 24 hours in my home, and you've already seen more than any of them. You've already said things to my face that no one else has dared to say. Maya waited, barely breathing. So tell me, Miss Sinclair, what would you suggest? It was the question that would change both their lives. And standing in that study, with the desert sunset painting the room in gold and shadow, Maya made a choice that would either save this family or destroy it. Let me show you, she said. Let me show you what she could be if you just gave her the chance to shine. The next 2 weeks were a transformation. Maya restructured Amira's entire care routine, turning every therapy session into an adventure. Respiratory treatments became dragon-slaying expeditions. Medication times became tea parties with Sir Breathes-a-Lot and Princess Airy. What had once been clinical and cold became playful and warm. But the real change wasn't in the treatments. It was in the connection. Maya set up virtual school sessions with children from around the world. Kids who were also fighting chronic illnesses. Kids who understood what it meant to be different. For the first time in her life, Amira had friends her own age. Kids who didn't see her as broken. Kids who just saw her. She arranged video calls with medical specialists who treated Amira like a person, not a diagnosis. Who asked about her favorite colors and her stuffed animals and her dreams for the future. And slowly, carefully, Amira began to bloom. The little girl who had been quiet and careful started to laugh. Not the polite, restrained laughter of a child who had learned to take up as little space as possible. Real laughter. Loud laughter. The kind that echoed off marble walls and made Rashid smile when he thought no one was looking. She asked questions constantly about everything. Why was the sky blue? Why did camels have humps? Why did Sir Breathes-a-Lot make that funny noise? She made demands. She wanted her hair braided in different ways. She wanted to paint. She wanted to hear stories about the outside world, the places Maya had been, the people she had met. For the first time in her life, Amira was acting like a child. And Khalid noticed. He started appearing during therapy sessions, watching Maya work with an expression she couldn't quite decode. At first, he stood in the doorway, silent and observing. Then he moved to a chair in the corner. Then to the edge of Amira's bed. He asked questions, genuine questions, about Amira's condition, about treatment options, about what the future might look like. "You're different with her," he observed one afternoon, watching Maya help Amira build a tower of blocks. "You don't treat her like she's fragile." "That's because she's not fragile." Maya smiled at Amira, who was concentrating fiercely on placing the final block. "She's tough as nails. She just needs people to expect more from her." That evening, for the first time, Khalid stayed for dinner. 3 people at a table designed for 20. Amira chattering about her day, about her new friends on the video calls, about the painting she was working on. Maya making jokes, drawing out Khalid's rare smiles like pulling teeth from a stubborn patient. And Khalid, slowly, carefully, learning what it felt like to be part of a family again. One evening, near the end of the second week, Amira made an announcement that stopped everyone in their tracks. Maya earned her name. Maya looked up from her dinner. "What do you mean, sweetheart? I give names to all the important things." Amira's expression was completely serious. "Sir breathes a lot. Princess Airy. And now you. What name did you give me?" Amira smiled. That brilliant, sun-breaking through cloud smile that Maya had come to love. "Stays. Because you stayed." Maya blinked rapidly, willing herself not to cry in front of a 5-year-old. But the tears came anyway, sliding down her cheeks before she could stop them. "That's the best name I've ever been given." Across the table, Khalid said nothing. But Maya noticed his hand trembling as he reached for his coffee. And later that night, standing in the doorway of Amira's room, watching his daughter sleep peacefully for the first time in weeks, Khalid whispered something so quietly Maya almost missed it. "Thank you." 2 words. But they carried the weight of 5 years of isolation, 5 years of fear, 5 years of walls built so high he had forgotten what it felt like to let anyone in. The walls were crumbling, and Maya was starting to realize that she might be falling through them. It happened on a night when the desert wind was soft and the stars seemed close enough to touch. Amira was asleep, dreaming peacefully after her evening therapy. Rashid had retired for the night. The compound was quiet in that heavy way it always was, silence pressing against the walls like something alive. Maya should have gone to bed. Instead, she found herself wandering through the gardens, drawn by the fountain's music and the cool night air. She didn't expect to find Khalid there. He was sitting on a bench near the water, jacket discarded, sleeves rolled up, looking more human than she had ever seen him. When she approached, he didn't seem surprised. Almost as if he had been waiting. "Couldn't sleep?" she asked. "I rarely sleep." He gestured to the space beside him. "Join me." Maya sat. The fountain played its quiet song. The stars watched from above. For a while, neither of them spoke. But it wasn't uncomfortable. It was the kind of silence that exists between people who have stopped pretending. Finally, Khalid turned to her. "Why did you become a nurse?" The question was simple. The answer was not. Maya looked up at the stars. This was the question she never answered honestly. The question she deflected with jokes or vague references to wanting to help people. She had built walls of her own, and this question was the key that could bring them down. But something about this moment, this garden, this man who had finally started to trust her, made her want to tell the truth. "I had a younger sister," Maya said. Her voice was steady, but her hands were not. She clasped them together, willing them to stop shaking. Her name was Lily. She was diagnosed with cancer when she was 10. She felt Khalid go still beside her. The doctors said she was fragile. The family said she needed to be protected. So they kept her home, kept her quiet, kept her safe, wrapped her in cotton wool, and treated her like glass. Maya's throat tightened. She spent the last 2 years of her life invisible. No school, no friends, no experiences, just treatment rooms and hospital beds, and the same 4 walls, day after day. She turned to look at Khalid. When she was dying, she told me the only thing she wanted was to be treated like a regular kid. To go to school, to make friends, to have people know her name. She was 12 years old, and her dying wish was to be seen. The tears came before Maya could stop them. She hadn't cried about Lily in years. She had locked that grief away so deep she thought it might never surface again. But here it was, raw and real and refusing to stay buried. "That's why I became a nurse," she whispered. "And that's why I'm telling you now. Hiding Amira isn't protection. It's punishment for a crime she didn't commit." The silence stretched between them, heavy with everything unsaid. When Khalid finally spoke, his voice was rough, cracked in places. I've been trying to protect her from becoming invisible. But instead, you made her invisible yourself. It was the truth, harsh and necessary and impossible to deny. Something broke in Khalid then. Not dramatically, not with tears or outbursts. Quietly, like ice cracking beneath the surface. Like walls that had stood for 15 years finally starting to crumble. I don't know how to do this differently, he admitted. I've been building walls for so long I've forgotten there's anything on the other side. Then let me show you. Maya reached out and took his hand. Neither of them spoke. Neither of them pulled away. This is the moment I want you to really hear. Two people, both carrying wounds so deep they forgot they were bleeding. One lost her sister to invisibility. One almost lost his daughter the same way. If this story has touched something in you, if you've ever felt unseen, unheard, hidden away by people who called it love, I need you to do something. Hit like right now. Not for the algorithm. For yourself. Because your story matters too. Comment below. Have you ever felt invisible? Have you ever wished someone would fight to see you? Share this with someone who needs to know they're not alone. Subscribe, turn on notifications, because what happens next between these two is going to change everything. Now, let's keep going. Because the storm is coming. The garden was quiet. The stars continued their ancient vigil overhead. And in the space between one heartbeat and the next, something shifted. Khalid looked at Maya's hand in his. At this woman who had walked into his home uninvited, broken every rule he'd set, challenged every wall he'd built. This woman who saw his daughter not as a burden or a secret, but as a child deserving of love and light and everything the world had to offer. Thank you, he said quietly, for seeing her, for seeing me. Maya squeezed his hand. That's what I do. I see people who don't think they deserve to be seen. And you? Khalid's voice was careful, tentative. Who sees you? The question caught Maya off guard. She was so used to being the one who saw others. The nurse, the caretaker, the person who showed up and fixed things and then disappeared. She had spent so many years making herself invisible that she had forgotten what it felt like to be witnessed. No one, she admitted. Not for a long time. Khalid turned to face her fully. In the moonlight, his features were softer. The ice was gone from his eyes, replaced by something warmer. Something almost like hope. Then perhaps, he said slowly, we can learn to see each other. For the first time in 15 years, Khalid al-Rashid went to bed wondering if maybe, just maybe, he had finally found someone worth trusting. But trust, as Maya was about to discover, is a fragile thing. And someone in that house was about to shatter it completely. The following 2 weeks were the happiest the al-Rashid compound had ever seen. It started small. A laugh that echoed a little longer through the marble hallways. A smile that appeared on Khalid's face and forgot to disappear. A little girl who started running instead of walking, because she finally had somewhere she wanted to go. Amira's transformation was remarkable. She laughed openly now, great peals of joy that made the staff stop in their tracks and smile. She demanded stories constantly, tales of faraway places and fantastic adventures, and everything the world had to offer beyond her purple walls. She asked, why about everything, the eternal question of a child finally allowed to be curious. She started calling Maya my Maya to anyone who would listen. Rashid, the kitchen staff, the gardeners who tended the impossible gardens, even the delivery people who never made it past the front gates. My Maya says the stars have names, she would announce at breakfast. My Maya showed me how to make a paper airplane. My Maya told me about snow. Can you believe water falls from the sky and turns white? Baba, we have to go somewhere with snow. And the drawings. Every day, Amira drew pictures. But they weren't just any pictures anymore. They were family portraits. Baba, tall and serious, but always smiling in her artwork. Maya, with her hair in the messy ponytail Amira loved to tease her about. And herself, always in the middle, always holding both their hands. Always together. Khalid's transformation was quieter, but no less profound. He started canceling meetings. The sheikh who had run his empire with an iron fist, who had never missed a conference call or a strategic session, began rearranging his entire schedule around his daughter's therapy sessions. He learned the names of her stuffed animals. Not just Sir Breedsalot and Princess Airy, but all of them. Lord Snuggles the bear, Duchess Whiskers the cat, Sir Hopsalot the rabbit, who was apparently Sir Breathes-a-Lot's cousin. He asked questions about the virtual school sessions. He wanted to know about Amira's new friends, the children from around the world who had become her companions. He requested updates on her medical progress, not from reports, but from Maya herself, sitting across from her at dinner and listening like what she said actually mattered. And he laughed. Not the polite, controlled laugh of a businessman entertaining clients. Real laughter. The kind that started in his belly and worked its way up until it burst out of him like something that had been locked away for years. Maya made him laugh. With her sarcasm and her irreverence and her absolute refusal to treat him like the powerful man everyone else saw. She teased him about his inability to relax. She mocked his perfect suits and his formal posture. She told him stories about her disastrous nursing school days that made him laugh so hard he nearly choked on his coffee. And somewhere in those 2 weeks, without either of them quite realizing it, they became a family. Maya noticed the change in herself too, though she tried not to examine it too closely. She stopped counting down the days until her rotation ended. The calendar on her phone that had once seemed like a countdown to freedom now felt like a timer she wanted to pause. She caught herself imagining what it would be like to stay, not just for a few more weeks, forever. Waking up in this compound, caring for Amira, sitting across from Khalid at dinner while he tried to hide his smile behind his coffee cup. She realized, with a terror that kept her awake at night, that she was falling in love. With both of them. The man who had been cold as ice was now warm enough to burn. The child who had been hidden away was now bright enough to blind. And Maya, who had spent years protecting herself from exactly this kind of attachment, was in so deep she could no longer see the surface. It was Amira who finally said what everyone was thinking. One afternoon, during a therapy session that had turned into a storytelling hour, the little girl looked up at Maya with those two perceptive eyes and asked a question that stopped both adults' hearts. Maya, are you going to be my new mama? The room went silent. Maya's heart stopped. Khalid, who had been watching from the doorway, froze in place. Sweetheart, The words wouldn't come. Maya looked at Khalid, desperate for help, but he seemed just as lost as she was. Amira didn't notice their distress. She was too excited by her own idea. Because I asked Allah for a mama who wouldn't leave, she continued, her voice matter of fact. And then you came. So I think maybe he listened. Don't you think so, Baba? Khalid's voice was rough when he finally spoke. I think, Habibi, that Allah works in mysterious ways. That night, after Amira was asleep, Khalid and Maya found themselves in the garden again. It had become their place somehow. The fountain, the stars, the space between worlds where they could be honest with each other. Amira is getting attached, Khalid said carefully. To you. I know. And He stopped. Started again. And I am concerned about what happens when your rotation ends. Maya's heart was pounding. Are you asking me to stay? I'm asking if you would consider it. She turned to look at him. In the moonlight, he looked younger. Less guarded. Like the man he might have been if life hadn't taught him to build walls. In what capacity? She asked. In whatever capacity you want. They were standing close now. Close enough that Maya could feel the warmth radiating from his body. Close enough that she could see the vulnerability in his eyes, the fear and the hope warring beneath the surface. I don't know if I can do this, she admitted. Her voice was barely a whisper. Everyone I love leaves or dies. I'm terrified of caring about her. About you. I'm terrified too. Khalid's hand found hers. But I'm more terrified of letting you walk away. They didn't kiss. Not yet. But they stood there, hands intertwined, hearts pounding, and something passed between them that felt like a promise. A beginning. Later that night, Rashid pulled Maya aside in the hallway. His expression was different than she had ever seen it. Not formal. Not distant. Worried. Be careful, Miss Sinclair. Maya frowned. Careful of what? The Sheikh is a good man. But this household has enemies. People who would use anything, anyone, to hurt him. What do you mean? Rashid looked around, as if checking for listeners. When he spoke again, his voice was lower. I mean that happiness, in this family, has never been allowed to last. There are people who watch. People who wait. And when they see something good starting to grow. He shook his head. They find ways to destroy it. Maya felt a chill run down her spine despite the warm desert air. Who are these people? But Rashid was already walking away, his warning hanging in the air like smoke. "Just be careful," he said over his shoulder. "For all of us." The morning everything broke started like any other. Maya was reviewing Amira's charts in the purple room, noting the improvements in her lung function, the weight she had finally started gaining. Good news. Great news. The kind of progress that made all the hard work worthwhile. Then Rashid appeared in the doorway. His face was like a thundercloud. Dark, heavy, threatening rain. "There's been a breach." Maya looked up. "What kind of breach?" One of the kitchen staff sold photographs to a tabloid. Rashid's voice was tight, with barely controlled fury. "The story runs tomorrow." Maya's blood went cold. Photographs of what? Of Amira. Of her room. Of the medical equipment. He paused. The headline is already written. Billionaire Sheikh's hidden sick daughter. The scandal he tried to bury. The charts fell from Maya's hands. She found Khalid in his study, pacing like a caged animal. All the warmth she had seen in him over the past 2 weeks was gone. The walls were back up, higher than ever, thicker than before. He moved with the barely contained fury of a man watching everything he had built crumble to dust. 15 years of protection, he said, not looking at her. 5 years of hiding her. And now the world will know she exists. Now the world will destroy her. Khalid spun to face Maya, and she saw something in his eyes she had never seen before. Desperation. Pure, unfiltered desperation. They will call her what her mother called her. They will label her before they know her name. They will reduce my daughter to a scandal, a headline, a story to be picked apart by strangers who have never seen her smile. Khalid, I was right. His voice cracked. I was right to hide her. I was right to protect her. And now, because I let my guard down, because I let someone in. He stopped, but Maya heard the accusation he didn't speak. Because of you. This isn't your fault, she said firmly. And it isn't mine. Someone betrayed your trust, Khalid. Someone in your own household. That's on them, not on us. It doesn't matter who is at fault. What matters is what happens to Amira. He was shaking. This powerful man, this billionaire who controlled an empire, was physically trembling with the force of his fear. Maya had never seen anyone so terrified. She found Amira in the purple room, clutching her stuffed animal, looking more frightened than Maya had ever seen her. "Baba, did I do something wrong?" the little girl asked as soon as Maya walked in. "Is someone angry at me?" Maya's heart shattered into 1,000 pieces. "No, Habibi. Never." She used the Arabic endearment she had learned from Khalid without thinking. "No one is angry at you. Then why is everyone so scared?" "Because there are things you don't know," Maya thought. "Because the world outside these walls isn't always kind. Because people who have never met you will try to define you, and it isn't fair, and it isn't right, but it's the reality we live in." But she didn't say any of that. Instead, she sat on the edge of Amira's bed and took the little girl's hands in hers. "Can I tell you something, sweetheart? Sometimes, people who don't understand things get scared, and scared people say mean things. But that's their problem, not yours. But everyone will know I'm sick now." Amira's voice was small. "Everyone will know about Sir Breathes-a-Lot and Princess Airy and my treatments. Everyone will know you're brave," Maya corrected gently. "Everyone will know you're a fighter. And everyone will know that your father loves you so much he built you an entire world." Amira was quiet for a moment. "Will they know about my stars?" she asked finally. "The ones I gave names to?" Maya smiled through her tears. "If you want them to, yes. They'll know about every single star." Later, alone with Khalid, Maya watched the man she had grown to love come apart at the seams. "I don't know what to do." His voice was hollow. "Defeated. My whole life, I've controlled every outcome, every variable, every possible threat, and now I can't protect her." "You've been protecting her from the wrong things." Maya took his hand. He flinched but didn't pull away. "Khalid, listen to me. You can't protect her from being seen. The story is out. Tomorrow, the whole world will know Amira exists. You can't change that. Then what can I do? You can control how she's introduced to the world." Maya squeezed his hand. "You can get ahead of the story. Tell your truth before they tell their lies. Show them the brilliant, funny, brave little girl that I've spent 3 weeks falling in love with. You want me to hold a press conference. I want you to introduce your daughter to the world. On your terms. With dignity." Khalid was silent for a long moment. Maya could see the war happening behind his eyes. The instinct to hide, to protect, to retreat behind the walls that had kept him safe for so long, versus the possibility, the terrifying possibility, that there might be another way. What if they're cruel? He asked finally. His voice was barely a whisper. What if they call her what her mother called her? Then you stand beside her and show them what a real parent looks like. There was a knock at the door. Rashid entered, looking older than Maya had ever seen him. Miss Sinclair. A word. She followed him into the hallway. When he turned to face her, his eyes were wet. You cannot leave now, Miss Sinclair. I wasn't planning to. You don't understand. His voice cracked. I had a daughter. Maya went still. She was born with a physical disability. My family said she was a shame. A disgrace. They pressured me to send her away, to institutionalize her, to pretend she had never existed. Rashid's hands were shaking. I refused, and they took her from me. I haven't seen her in 20 years. The tears spilled over now, running down the face of this formal, dignified man who had spent so long hiding his own pain. I have served this household for 15 years. I have watched the Sheikh make the opposite mistake, hiding Amira instead of sending her away, but achieving the same result, making her invisible, making her feel like she was something to be ashamed of. He looked at Maya with something like desperation. This little girl, she is my redemption. And you are the answer I prayed for. Please, do not abandon her. Maya felt her own tears falling. I'm not going anywhere, Rashid. I promise. In that moment, Maya made a decision that would change 3 lives forever. She wasn't going to let this family hide anymore. She was going to teach them how to stand in the light. The press conference was held at the compound 2 days later. Dozens of cameras, hundreds of journalists, flashbulbs going off like lightning strikes. Every major news outlet in the world gathered in the Al Rashid Gardens, waiting to witness what they assumed would be a scandal. They were wrong. Behind the scenes, Khalid was barely holding himself together. Maya had never seen him so terrified. His hands were shaking so badly, he could barely button his jacket. His face was pale beneath its natural bronze. He kept looking at Amira like he was sending her into battle. Baba, why are there so many people? Amira asked. She was wearing a beautiful dress, emerald green, that Maya had helped her choose. Her hair was braided with tiny flowers. They want to meet you, Habibi. Why? Khalid knelt down so he was at eye level with his daughter. Because you're special, he said, his voice rough with emotion. And it's time the world knew. Amira thought about this for a moment. Will I have to take my medicine in front of them? Despite everything, Khalid laughed. No, Habibi. Just be yourself. That's more than enough. Maya caught Khalid's eye over Amira's head. She nodded slightly. You can do this. He took a deep breath and stepped up to the microphone. The room fell silent as Sheikh Khalid al-Rashid faced the cameras. For a long moment, he said nothing. The flashbulbs continued their assault. The journalists leaned forward, notebooks ready, prepared to capture whatever scandal or excuse he was about to offer. Then he spoke. Amira al-Rashid is my greatest achievement. The room went still. She is brilliant, courageous, and stronger than I will ever be. She names the stars and her medical equipment and everyone she meets. She draws pictures that should be in museums. She asks questions that I cannot answer. She is, without question, the best thing I have ever done in my life. Khalid's voice was steady now. All the fear had been channeled into something else. Conviction. For too long, I hid her out of fear. Fear of judgment. Fear of pity. Fear that the world would see her the way her mother once did. As less than. He paused. His eyes found Maya in the crowd. But I've learned that hiding someone you love doesn't protect them. It diminishes them. It tells them that they are something to be ashamed of. And my daughter, my beautiful, brave, extraordinary daughter, has nothing to be ashamed of. His voice cracked. He didn't try to hide it. Amira has cystic fibrosis. She requires daily treatments and constant medical care. She will fight this battle for the rest of her life. But she does not fight alone. And from this day forward, she will not fight in secret. He reached down and lifted Amira into his arms. My daughter deserves to be celebrated, not concealed. And I will spend the rest of my life making sure the world knows how lucky it is that she exists. The flashbulbs exploded. But Khalid wasn't finished. I have one more thing to say. To every parent out there who is hiding a child because they think it will protect them. To every family that has been told their child is broken or defective or less than. You are wrong. And so was I. He looked at his daughter. These children are not burdens. They are gifts. And the sooner we stop hiding them, the sooner we start celebrating them, the better we all become. A journalist's voice cut through the silence. Amira, what do you want people to know about you? Everyone held their breath. The little girl leaned toward the microphone her father held. She thought carefully, the way she did about everything. Then she spoke. I have cystic fibrosis. That means I have to do breathing treatments and take medicine. But I also know the names of all the stars. And I can name my medical equipment. Sir breathes a lot is very brave. And Princess Airy is very kind. The audience was smiling now. Some were wiping their eyes. I have the best Baba in the whole world, Amira continued. He reads me stories and lets me eat dessert sometimes, even when I haven't finished dinner. And he's learning all the names of my stuffed animals. She paused. Then, with the devastating honesty only a child can possess. Also, my nurse Maya is going to be my new mama. She just doesn't know it yet. The room erupted. Laughter. Tears. Cameras flashing so fast they looked like strobe lights. Khalid turned to look at Maya. She was crying. Openly, unashamedly crying, standing in the crowd with her hand over her mouth and tears streaming down her face. He smiled at her, and Maya knew, in that moment, that everything was about to change. The response was overwhelming. Not scandal. Support. Within hours, the story had spread around the world. But it wasn't the story the tabloids had planned to tell. It was a different story. A better story. Parents of chronically ill children shared their own experiences. Medical foundations reached out, offering support and resources. Amira received letters from children on every continent. Kids who also fought battles most people never saw. Kids who finally had a princess who looked like them. The hashtag started trending within hours. Hashtag Amira's Army. Hashtag Every Child Deserves to Be Seen. Hashtag Sheikhdad. And Maya Sinclair, the American nurse who had stumbled into this family 3 weeks ago, became quite accidentally famous. The American nurse who exposed the Sheikh's secret, the headlines read. But the secret they celebrated wasn't the hidden child. It was the hidden heart of a man everyone had believed was cold. Maya's contract ended on a Tuesday. She woke before dawn, staring at the ceiling of the room that had become more home than anywhere she had ever lived. Her duffel bag sat packed by the door, the same bag she had arrived with 3 weeks ago, but now it felt heavier. Like it was carrying more than clothes and toiletries. Like it was carrying pieces of her heart she wasn't sure she could take with her. A knock at the door. Rashid stood in the hallway, wearing something Maya had never seen on his face before. A real smile. The Sheikh requests your presence in the garden before your departure. My departure. The word tasted wrong in her mouth. Foreign. Like a language she had forgotten how to speak. Yes. Rashid's eyes were twinkling. Unless you have other plans. Maya looked at him for a long moment. Then she left her bag where it was and followed him through the marble hallways one last time. The garden was painted gold by the rising sun. Khalid stood by the fountain, wearing not a suit but simple clothes, looking more nervous than Maya had ever seen him. In his hand was a single white rose. Your contract ends today, he said as she approached. I'm aware. I need to offer you a new one. Maya's heart was pounding so loud she was sure he could hear it. What kind of contract? The permanent kind. He took a step toward her, then another, until they were standing so close she could see every fleck of gold in his dark eyes. Maya Sinclair, in 3 weeks you've done what no one else could. You saw through every wall I built. You loved my daughter without condition, and you showed me that being seen isn't weakness. It's courage. He knelt before her, and Maya's hand flew to her mouth. Stay? Not as an employee. Stay as family. Stay because I have spent 15 years believing I was unworthy of love, and you've dismantled that belief in 21 days. He opened his hand. A ring lay in his palm. Simple. Elegant. Chosen with care. Stay because I love you. Stay because Amira loves you. Stay because this house is not a home without you in it. Maya was crying again. She seemed to do a lot of that lately. What about the tabloids? She managed. What about your family? What about? I don't care about any of it. Khalid's voice was firm. I only care about you. Maya looked at the ring, at the man kneeling before her, at the gardens that had become their sanctuary, at the compound that had become her home. Amira already said I was going to be her mama. Khalid laughed. tears in his own eyes now. Amira is smarter than both of us. Yes, Maya said. To the ring, to the family, to everything. Yes. When they kissed, somewhere in the purple room, a little girl was watching through a window, grinning so wide her face hurt. I told you. Amira whispered to Sir Breathes-a-Lot. I told you she wouldn't leave. I knew it all along. 6 months later, the wedding took place on the compound rooftop. It wasn't the grand event everyone expected from a billionaire sheikh. There were no dignitaries or business partners or social obligations. Just family. Real family. The kind that's chosen rather than inherited. Former nurses sat beside executives. The ones who had been kind, the ones who had tried, the ones who had seen Amira's humanity even if they hadn't been able to stay. Medical staff who had cared for Amira over the years filled the front row, and Rashid stood as witness, tears streaming down his face, making no effort to hide them. Amira was the flower girl. She pushed her small oxygen cart down the aisle, decorated with ribbons and roses she had insisted on arranging herself. Princess Ari had never looked so beautiful, she announced to anyone who would listen. The guests laughed through their tears. The vows were simple, perfect. Khalid spoke first, his voice steady but his eyes wet. You found me at my coldest and loved me anyway. You saw my daughter when I was too afraid to show her to the world. You taught me that walls don't protect. They imprison. I promised to spend the rest of my life outside those walls. With you. Maya's turn. She gripped his hands so tight her knuckles went white. You named me Stays. And I'm never giving that name back. I promised to fight for this family, to see you when you try to hide, to love you when you're scared, and to remind you every single day that you are worthy of being seen. When they kissed, Amira cheered so loudly that every camera in the vicinity captured her jumping up and down in her flower girl dress, oxygen cart, and all, the picture of pure, unbridled joy. The photo went viral within hours. The little girl who taught a billionaire how to love. 1 year later, Maya Al-Rashid stood on the cover of a medical foundation magazine, her husband beside her, their daughter between them. Advocates for children with chronic illness. Voices for the invisible. Amira, now 6, video called children around the world from her room. Her room. Not the hidden room, not the purple prison, but a space with windows that opened and doors that stayed unlocked and walls covered in drawings of stars she had named herself. Rashid had reunited with his daughter. Maya had helped him find her, tracked her down through records and persistence, and the same stubborn refusal to give up that had brought her to Dubai in the first place. He cried for 3 days straight after their first phone call. Then he smiled for 3 weeks. The compound was different now. No longer a prison. A home. With open doors and unlocked gates and visitors who came to see Amira, not to hide from her. 18 nurses in 2 years. That was the record Sheikh Khalid al-Rashid had built. Not out of cruelty, but out of fear. He had believed that hiding his daughter would protect her from a world that might call her broken. He had constructed walls so high and so thick that no light could get in. He had made his daughter invisible to keep her safe. But hiding someone doesn't protect them. It tells them there's something to be ashamed of. And then came Maya. She didn't fix anything. She just saw what was already there. A father who loved too hard. A child who shined too bright. And a family that had been waiting for permission to exist in the open. Sometimes, the greatest gift we give someone isn't protection. It's visibility. It's saying, I see you, and you are enough. If this story touched you, even for a moment, if it made your heart tighten, or your eyes sting, or your spirit feel a little braver, please tap like right now. It tells YouTube that stories like this still matter. And I want to hear from you. Rate this story from 0 to 10. Tell me which moment hit you the hardest. Who was your favorite character? Maya, Khalid, or little Amira? And what city and time of day are you watching from? Your comments help this little community grow, one heartbeat at a time. If you know someone who needs hope today, someone who needs a reminder that people can change and hearts can heal, share this story with them. You might lift someone's entire day. If you want more stories that make you cry, laugh, hope, and breathe differently, subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss what comes next. This channel is your home now, a place where broken hearts get rebuilt. 1 year after the wedding, the family was hosting a small celebration at the compound. Well, small by billionaire standards. International press had been invited. Dignitaries from a dozen countries. medical professionals and foundation representatives, and everyone who had become part of Amira's army over the past year. The garden was full of people laughing and talking and celebrating everything this family had overcome. Amira, now confident and charming, was showing guests her room. Not hiding in it, showing it off, like the princess she had always known herself to be. She was explaining the naming conventions of her medical equipment to a very serious-looking journalist when she spotted something through the window. A photographer, sneaking through the rose bushes with a long lens, trying to capture candid shots without being seen. Any other child might have been scared, might have called for a parent, might have hidden. Amira al-Rashid was not any other child. Without missing a beat, she marched over to the window, threw it open, and said in a voice that carried across the entire garden, "Excuse me, sir? If you want to take my picture, you have to ask. Also, I charge $20 and I only accept payment in cookies." The photographer was so startled, he tripped backward into the rose bushes. The entire party stopped. Everyone stared. And then, starting with Khalid and spreading through the crowd like wildfire, everyone burst out laughing. Maya, holding her husband's hand, wiped tears of joy from her eyes. "She gets that from you," Khalid said. "The confidence? Definitely from me. I meant the cookie negotiation." Maya laughed so hard she nearly spilled her drink. And somewhere in the garden, a little girl who was once hidden from the world waved at the cameras with a grin that could light up a country. She was seen. She was celebrated. She was home. And that's how a cold billionaire, a brave American nurse, and a little girl with a big heart learned the most important lesson of all. The people who try hardest to stay invisible are usually the ones who shine the brightest when you finally let them be seen. Thank you for watching. See you in the next story.